I have a hyperlocal news site in Birmingham, Alabama, Magic City Post, and our culture is very soft and happy. So instead of firing, we say releasing you from your position because you're going to a better place where you're going to have a better match than you did with us. And it's people don't cry when you say release, but if you say fired, they're like, I did something completely wrong, and sometimes it's just they're a mismatch. All right, so the first discussion point that we had was the people you hire will either help maintain, make, or even break your business. Do any of you have commission-only independent contractors or employees on your staff as sales reps? Do you have desire to bring them on board? Is that what you're looking for? You need sales reps, but you're bootstrapping, you're on a limited budget, you want people to go out and sell for you? One of the most common mistakes that I've seen, and I know I've made this mistake myself, is when you start out, you're like, okay, well, I'm doing this commission only. I need to bring somebody on board. I'm just going to find somebody that has a little bit of sales experience. It's normal, and I'm going to pray a lot that they can go out and they can really do this. What I learned is we at Magic City Post had put all of this effort into building our culture. So our culture was very supportive and inclusive and happy, and like my team, they love each other. If Mandy needs to move, like pretty much everybody on our staff is already like, I want to help you move, and they genuinely do. They care about each other. So knowing that when you bring somebody new into that mix, they can upset what's already working, even if it's commission only person, I think is kind of crucial. So someone, even if you're bringing them in at what you think is a low risk like that, commission only, they can actually end up hurting your business if they're not the right hire for you, even at commission only for bootstrappers.
Right, one of the things that we found with the super camp folks, just in sort of understanding where people are coming from, is the, I don't want to call it a fantasy, but the idea that if somebody's a salesperson and they're working commission only, you don't really have an office, then they're just out in the community. If they sell something, that's all good, and if they don't sell anything, there's no really downside to that. But as Emily's saying, there is a huge downside because they are out there representing your brand. You know, never mind your internal culture, but you've got somebody out there talking about your brand in ways that you may not be clear about. So you need to, there is no such thing as a salesperson who is really just out there selling, who doesn't need some kind of support or connection back to the home office. So, which I think we have on a slide elsewhere, but this process of hiring the right people and retaining them and building a culture is critically important.
Yeah, so the pink elephant is like, we all know we're bootstrapping. There are very few hyperlocal news operations that are actually funded. So none of us have like stacks of that laying around, or we would be having a conversation about hiring the very best sales rep with all the experience that, you know, we can possibly find that also fit into our culture. So every slide that we talk about through here is really with consideration that we know that you're bootstrappers too, and that you do need to find somebody who is a good fit, but that can also fit your budget. That's one of the aspects of good fit, someone that you can afford.
This is your...
Yeah, so there is a process. There's a book called 5 Dysfunctions of Team. If you have a chance to read it, it's a business book. It's really, really good. It's kind of written in a fun kind of way, not boring at all. But it talks about these stages of forming, storming, norming. And if you think back about your professional career, you've probably been through this before. You know, the team sort of, have you ever worked with a group of people for like a year or so? And you know each other, and you know how each of the members of the team operate, how they're going to respond to something. Like, there's value in that because you can move faster when you all know each other really well. So when you bring somebody new on board, you're going to go through these stages of forming, meaning one new person comes into a team, and it can be a team of 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, 5 people. It doesn't matter. You start over. Forming, getting to know each other. Storming, you start to work together. There may be some signs of conflict between some of your team members because they're just getting to know each other and just getting to know how everybody else operates and how they like to work. And then finally, you'll get back to norming, which is sort of the regular state of getting things done. So that is also a danger in bringing somebody on board that's not a really great fit just because they will work for commission only, is you're going to put all of your people who are performing now through this whole stage. And that includes you too. You're going to go through it as well as a publisher.
And we're talking here about managers as if we're talking about larger organizations, but the fact is that even if you're a sole person, at some point you're going to either bring on a partner or an employee. We just had a session on partners and why that's not such a good idea, but it's all about fit, and you've got to have the right relationship. So it's worth spending the time to find the right person and then to develop that relationship with your first hire and every hire afterward, because as it says, you've got the relationship with the manager is that number one reason.
There are 3 different styles of management. One is laissez-faire. I most often see this with local indie publishers, which is you've got so much on your plate and you're so busy already that you just want to find that commission-only salesperson who knows how to do it, so they'll just go out and do it and you don't have to worry about it. And that's really an area where you've got a lot of risk around in your business if you do that. Because if you're hands-off, if you're laissez-faire, chaos will ensue and someone will try to take over or people will just be completely disengaged. So that style of management, just kind of hands-off, I'm too busy, let them do whatever they're going to do and let them be successful if they can because I don't have time for them, it's not one that will be most beneficial to your business. The next one's autocratic.
Before you go there.
Sure.
Well, actually, go ahead.
The next one is autocratic, which is I'm going to tell you what to do every single moment that you're here. Every moment. Autocratic managers are typically found in traditional media. There are a lot. The newspaper industry is kind of known for having a militaristic sort of culture internally. This is of benefit to you as a local indie publisher because if you're competing against them for employees, and especially with Gen Y, they're different. They don't want to work for an autocratic manager normally. Gen Y want to be part of a participatory decision-making process. So when you're looking at who you need to hire and you know that there's talent out there, you can win on culture if you don't have an autocratic culture and you're hiring somebody who's Gen Y. And then the last one is democratic. And that's actually the most productive. So that is letting all the people who work for you, independent contractors, whatnot, participate in decisions for your company, knowing that if you're the owner, you're the ultimate decision maker. But if you let people buy into processes and have some ownership in the company, they're going to be a lot happier. If you look at the 3 of them, we did this exercise when I was in business school, and we had to go through and make snowflakes. So there was a team who made paper snowflakes for the laissez-faire manager, one who made snowflakes for the autocratic manager, and one for the democratic. So the laissez-faire person was just walking around on their cell phone, ignoring like absolutely everybody. The autocratic guy was yelling and telling everybody what to do kind of every minute. And then the democratic was sort of, hey, do you need help with that? What kind of snowflake do you think we should make? What process do you guys think we should follow? When we looked at the statistics, the people who were making snowflakes for the democratic manager were 50% more productive than the next ones, which were the autocratic. And the worst is the laissez-faire. And if you're busy, the one that you'll fall into is the laissez-faire. So just keep those management styles in mind because they can actually help you recruit somebody really good who wants to work for you.
One observation I've made over the years of watching beginning managers is that people who are new to being a manager tend to flop either to the laissez-faire or to the autocratic. They're really not comfortable. They haven't had training there, and they probably have had a bad boss in the past, which was one or the other, and they've decided they're going to be the opposite of that. So it's rare to find a beginning manager who falls into a comfort zone with the democratic. I would point out that situationally, the most advanced managers, the most effective managers, are able to use these 3 techniques as needed. So if your site is down, you're not going to call a meeting to ask people what we should do about it. You got to move into action mode. If things are going well and people are very self-directed, then you can take your hands off and you can be the laissez-faire manager. If there's decisions to be made that are more long-term or shorter term, and you've got the time to do it, then involve people because you'll have more buy-in going forward. So the the trick in terms of just the evolution of a manager is to get to where you understand all these three and you know which one is appropriate when. Why don't you speak to this?
Yeah, I can speak to this one. The reason why I don't work in traditional media anymore. So the number 2 reason why people leave is a values mismatch in the company. It's important to know why people might leave your company so that you can make those corrections, because when you have turnover, it costs you money. Even commission only costs you money in terms of time, burned leads, anything else that you had going on. So the values mismatch for me was I worked for some really great companies, but the things that were most important to me weren't the things that were most important to them. So I always felt uneasy working there. So when you're interviewing people, and we do this at Magic City Post, we ask questions around values. You know, which is more important to you? You know, honesty or being nice? Because that plays into the culture of your company. Do you want employees who are honest with you and tell you when there's a problem, or do you want ones who always revert to being nice? So if you have values of like focus, urgency, passion in your company, and you write that into your business plan, then you're going to ask that question during the interview. You know, tell me a little bit about a situation. You know, how do you feel about deadlines? That might be an urgency question, because if it's going to be important to you that somebody who works for you is producing a good amount of work, like they're putting out a lot of stories, and especially since journalism is changing now, if you're hiring new people out of school, they may not be used to writing on deadline, and you may need them to. So asking that question during the interview, that urgency, which is really a values issue, will help somebody stay on board, and it'll help you kind of divert an issue or avoid an issue altogether, that what was important for that person is not something that your company was able to offer. So for our company, like, we are focus, urgency, passion all day long. We hire people who are really, really passionate about Birmingham, about local business, about what we're doing, that know how to work on deadline, that move really, really fast, and that are focused on the task at hand. And that means in our office, if you come in, you don't find a lot of people sitting around just sort of chit-chatting about what they're going to do for the weekend, because we're focused, right? I mean, we know what our goals are, we know what we need to accomplish. You don't find folks who don't care about the community, because we ask those questions and we vet it out during interviews. And you find folks who, if they can't write on deadline when we hire them, they know from the get-go that they have to, because those are our values. So ask questions that line up with the values of your company, not just the jobs role, because if you don't do that, it could be somebody who's really good in the role, but they end up leaving you because you have a values mismatch.
You know, there's a lot of great examples where there's no like bad or good answer to this, but it's more about, you know, what kind of a site are you? If you're looking for a writer, for example, and most of your site is breaking news and crime, maybe, you know, short items, and you're interviewing somebody who is clearly passionate about long narrative writing, but who says they would love to do this kind of work, that's worth spending some time on, because they may have all the good intentions, but if they are truly, when you really get down to it, if they're really motivated by doing long-form narrative, and they're sort of trying to talk themselves into this different way of thinking, it's just a bad match. And so sometimes it's not about values in terms of you know, ethics. It's about what is your site about, and finding people who are motivated in the same way that you are about your site, if that makes sense. Does that make sense to people?
Yes. And that's probably going to be even more with the economy being what it is now. But yeah, they're going to have 38 jobs. And part of the reason why is because they don't necessarily fully understand what their values are now. So it behooves you, if you're going to hire Gen Y, and my entire staff is Gen Y. All of them. They're Gen Y because I'm bootstrapping. So since we didn't have a lot of funds to go and hire, we're like, we need to get the most people that we can and get a really good team going. And they will work initially, you know, for two of our staff members don't have health insurance yet. They get a health stipend for us because they're on their parents' insurance. So we can go back later and add insurance as we grow. They also work for, a little bit less money than other folks. So if you're hiring Gen Y people, keep in mind that because they're going to have 38 jobs over their careers, that you do want to ask those values questions to make sure that you line up as best as you possibly can, and that you want to have a good training program in place. Because at some point, this is going to be, the bulk of the workforce that we're all hiring from, over the next decade. And they do like change. They're not as loyal to companies because they saw their parents lose jobs. So one thing that you can do now, just keeping this in mind, is go through and build out a really good training program and get all of your processes down on paper, because preparing your business to have natural turnover like this that's going to result from this generation, do everything you can to keep turnover from happening, but know that you're going to have it with Gen Y for sure, and get new people in as quickly as you can without a lot of detriment to your business by having your processes in place and your sales training program in place. Does that number shock y'all?
Yes.
Why don't you speak to the hiring questions? Emily's done a lot more hiring than I have in the past few years.
Okay. All right, so we came up with a list of questions. It's really easy when you're hiring to go through and say, okay, what do I want from a candidate? And then you write the job description and you're like, okay, here's who I'm looking for. But when you're bootstrapping and you need people to come on board with you, especially when you're looking at commission only, independent contractors or employees, and anybody else for that matter, they're gonna come in and think, what's in it for me? So you sit down at that interview chair and you're like, okay, what can I get from this person? And they're sitting there thinking, what can I get from this person? So that you arrive kind of at the same place. What's it like to work here is one of the first questions that they're going to be thinking of.
And these are Gen Y kinds of questions.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what's it like to work here is the culture question, and culture plays into values. What they're really asking you here is, for me, what I want them to know is, well, what's it like to work here? We're a really supportive, respectful work environment. We have a team charter. Here's how we hold each other accountable. Focus, urgency, and passion are our values. They want to know what's it like to work within that team or within that group. So some of the questions that you can ask, what are the organizational values and how closely do they match the values of the candidate? So if focus, urgency, passion is what you're hiring for, or whatever your 3 or 4 are, then ask questions so that you find out, do they fit in that particular area? When you're interviewing the person, another question to ask yourself is the environment one that will increase this person's productivity? So if you get somebody, we have one person on our staff in particular right now that she can't work in our office. She loves everybody. She's really productive. She cannot have people around her talking, and we know that. So for her role in particular, she works from home a lot. We're cool with that. She comes in from staff meetings. She does what she needs to. But I knew when I hired her that I hired her even though I knew that she would need to work at her house and not within the collective office. So you want them to be the most productive that they can because you're growing your business.
I'm sure that's a calculation, though.
Yeah.
In some cases, you might decide that that's not a trade-off that you're willing to make.
Right.
Because you want everybody to be a team.
And in the interview process, can you find out how will that person work within your team setting? What I do for this, we've lengthened our interview process. When I first started out, I'm like, please, we need people. I need to sleep. We need folks to come in and help us. And we brought people on board after one interview and checking their references. I don't do that. You meet with us a minimum of 7 times if you're coming on board with us. You meet with every single member of my team individually. You meet with us in a group. You come to our staff meeting, and then I sit down with you a minimum of 2 to 3 times as well. Because I want to make sure as I can possibly be before someone comes on board, that they're going to be a good fit to work with us. We also request that when we interview someone, they'll go to a team outing with us. Our group really loves to get together. You know, they help each other move. They've sort of defined our culture, being Generation Y, that they kind of want to hang out after work. And when they hang out after work, they talk about ideas and how we can build and how we can grow. So when we are considering hiring somebody, they also come to that after work kind of session because that's part of our culture and it's important for us. I talked to, they came up with them on their own and I helped them fine tune them. So Mandy, who is our editorial intern, she came in over the summer and then she stayed on board, hugely valuable. So I went to Mandy and said, hey, you're an editorial, we're considering hiring a sales rep. She's not a sales rep. That's not her area of expertise, so I don't need her to ask questions around whether or not this will be a good sales rep. Like, that's my job because they'll be reporting to me. The stuff that I want her to find out from them is this person going to fit in with our team? Are they a good cultural fit? So I asked Mandy, well, you know, what are you going to ask? What are you going to sit down and talk about to determine whether or not this person's a good cultural fit? And they'll come up with a list of questions for me. She came up with, I'm going to ask these 5 questions in particular because I know that if this person doesn't like to go get a drink after work, you know, 1 day per week or go to lunch or whatnot, that they're really not going to feel like they're part of the team. So I'm going to ask that. So for my folks, it's all about culture. For the sales rep, because we already have sales reps on board, they will ask different questions. They may ask a sales-specific question, but each of them, before they meet with a candidate, gets a copy of their resume, and then I talk with them and we go over what questions are you going to ask them.
And are all these people full-time?
For my team, I have my 5 people, with the exception of one, because our intern went back to school. She's 30 hours a week now, but everybody else is full-time. And we started about a year ago. It was just me starting out. So we've built it kind of slowly and organically. Huh? Making a lot of mistakes to begin with. I think the biggest mistake that I made in the beginning is not making sure that someone was a cultural fit. And we hired a couple of people that were really wonderful people, and they could even do the job, but they didn't fit in for the organization that we wanted to build. And then when we found the people that did fit in, they started not fitting in anymore.
But how did you financially afford to do that?
For them, everybody on my team was commission only to begin with. So as we've grown, we have taken some of the folks who are commission only and moved them over to full-time employees.
So are you the sales side of that, or are you the editorial side, or both?
Yeah, I'm sort of the publisher, so I do a little bit of both, but we do have, we've been here, what, 3 days now? 2 days?
Day and a half?
Yeah, I haven't even checked in.
You know, is it
That didn't happen last year. Last year I was like every 5 minutes, but they've come far enough now. I mean, we all trust each other so implicitly that sales is handled right now, editorial is handled. There's nothing that I need to worry about. I'll get a phone call if something comes up. But it took time.
But actually, to the heart of your question, that this is a very different startup model, which I find very interesting. Emily started this site in Birmingham, really starting from the needs of the local merchant community, with the idea that would then build the resources to then add a layer of news onto that. Most of these sites start from the other way around. Start with news, try to build an audience, sell advertising. So it's been very interesting, and I don't know, there's not many that have started. I don't know, do you know of any others that have started like that?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, so it's a different kind of model, and it could be a model for others to try. But it requires that the publisher come from a mindset of understanding, what that's about, not news first, but we're going to build a business here. It's going to have news in it, but we're going to start with the merchant services, and then we're going to add news when we can afford it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so merchant services, so you're not just producing a publication, you're doing something else?
Yeah, we have our expansion strategy to be able to grow. We have e-commerce enabled shopping for local independent businesses, and then we sell services on top of that. So shopbirmingham.com is our primary domain in Birmingham. And then we have Magic City Post is our news site. And we cross-sell those, we cross-promote them. But we went in with a market validation study. So we looked at what do local businesses need and how do we fill that need. And then Magic City Post, it all fits in as sort of the same brand, as in we're community building, we're reporting on issues about the community, we're providing services for local merchants in the community. But we weren't exclusively banner ads from the get-go. In fact, we didn't sell a banner ad until back a couple of months ago because somebody called us on it. We sell the merchant services. Really, that's what we push. So it's a little different for that reason.
Very different. We'll be doing very similar to what we were just talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Scope of responsibilities, making sure there's a job description that you can go back to, working the job description in terms of feedback and performance reviews. What's your check? How often do you go over performance? Do you talk about that annually, monthly, quarterly?
Mm-hmm. All the time.
All the time.
My people manage each other, which is awesome. I'm not laissez-faire. I manage them too. But there's a process we'll talk about in a minute called situational leadership that you look at the levels that folks are at in key areas and how you get them to the next level, because the idea is you bring an employee in, they're going to need your time. They're going to need you to go out on sales calls with them. They're going to need you to give them time and attention and get them on track. But the idea is, like with me right now, I'm not worried about anything. Well, at the beginning of the summer when our intern came on board, Mandy, we talked about 15 times a week. I mean, we saw each other every day. We met all the time. We talked about stories. Because I spent time with her in the very beginning, though, we got her to what I call like level 4. She's self-sustaining. She knows how I think. She knows how the company thinks. She knows exactly what needs to be done. So moving people from a level of a starter employee to getting them as self-sufficient as they possibly can, as quickly as you can, is one sort of methodology that you can use. For accountability, though, all of my folks have a team charter. So we all sat down as a group, and if somebody new comes on board, we sit down and we do this again. And they wrote up a charter, and I kind of guided the process. How are you going to hold one another accountable? How are you going to treat each other in the office? So is this a mutually respectful place, meaning if somebody said something really rude, out of turn, how are you guys going to deal with that as a group? Because I didn't want to be in the office managing people all the time. If I was out, I wanted them to act just like they would if I was in the office too. And since they came up with that, they bought into it. So they sort of manage each other to a degree, and I've seen them do it. I've been sitting in the office and I kind of bite my tongue because one of our folks will say to another, like, you know, that was really inappropriate what you said, because if you go back and look at our team charter, you know, what we all agreed to was blank. And I'm like, I don't need to say anything. So with our sort of process that we go through when we hold folks accountable and look at how they're growing is, where are they at in that situational leadership process that I'll talk about in a little while. We base everything on that, because that is, are you getting more done? Are you growing? Are you developing? And we have constant conversations about it, because my employees know where they are in that process. They all want to get to the next level, because that means more responsibility, more cool projects, more opportunities for growth. So we keep each other on track for that. And they'll even come to me like, hey, we need to have our meeting like next week because I'm at a 2 and I think I'm at a 3 now. Like, I've gotten more done this past month. They want to sit down and talk about it. So I think they feel like I am a partner in their growth. So if I know that they want to work on something, I'll send them webinars, I'll point them to online resources, whatever they need to help get them to what they need to learn, whatever level that is, because I benefit from it and they do too. So that's sort of our feedback process that we use.
I think if that seems like a lot of overhead, and I think this we're talking about a very advanced management style here, not for everybody. But I think even if you're more of a traditionalist, or if this seems like too much, it's smart to have a regularly scheduled monthly meeting with, especially if you have a small team, everybody on your team one-on-one. to talk about how things have gone in the past month and what's coming up in the next month, and reflect back on the job description about what's working well, what's not, and what can I do to help. So it's a very structured conversation. It affirms this concept that Emily said, we're in this together. I'm going to help you with this. It's not me looking for things to beat you up about. Ideally, if you're the manager, you're keeping track of high points of the past month, and you're pulling those out of a file to talk about at this monthly meeting. And likewise with problems, ideally, again, you're talking about the problems as they happen, but you want to reaffirm them at the monthly meeting about whether you've seen progress on it, or how we're going to prevent this from happening going forward.
Mm-hmm. One more piece that you brought up, when you're bringing somebody on board, or if you, like, looking at your staff now, if you have a renegade person, because we've all had them, somebody who's maybe not performing up to their potential, you can use a process. It's going to sound autocratic because it is a little bit, but we do it with new hires called agile management. I would explain to the person that you're bringing on board, during your first 90 days with us, we use a process called agile management, where every morning I need you to send me an email about what you're going to be working on for that particular day, what you're going to get accomplished, and then at the end of the day, every day, send me another email listing what you actually got finished off of that list. So in a world where you guys are really busy, if you have somebody new coming on board, that helps keep those lines of communication open until you build that really good trusting relationship with them and you know that they're getting stuff done. You're still going to have open dialogue after those 90 days, but during that initial time period, that's when they're going to need the most contact from you. So you can use things like email to make sure that you're both communicating, and that more importantly, that you know what they're doing, what they have going on, so you don't wonder, are they out making phone calls or doing what they're supposed to be.
I think actually the notes you have here are really relevant to Gen Y, because in a lot of cases this will be their first job, so you may be dealing with things like, what time do people show up in the office? And
can I wear flip-flops?
Okay.
I didn't put a dress code in place, and I had somebody show up in flip-flops one day. I'm like, it's my fault. I didn't put it in there.
Point being?
Yeah.
So it's depending on where somebody is in their career. If this is their first real job, you may have to take a step back and really talk very specifically about what it means to work in this environment, and dealing with things that you may take to be assumptions, like what about showing up on time and appropriate dress and things like that. So, yeah. We'll start this one.
What's in it for me? This is, anybody's going to think this, but most especially Gen Y, like, what are you going to pay me? What's the compensation going to be? If you're offering commission only, there's stuff that you can do above and beyond monetary compensation that can be really valuable. So our benefits package, and you can go through and you can choose what's important for your folks, because we reevaluate our benefits package on a regular basis. Ours includes, every week, every one of our employees get a veggie box share from the local farmers market for enough food for like 4 people. Everyone who works for me gets that every single week. So we're not worried about, is everybody eating okay at home or whatnot, because they're getting vegetables. Everybody who works for me gets a gym or a yoga membership. So, that's getting them healthier. We benefit from that because people who are like, healthy and working out have more energy. We need people to be focused, urgent. They need energy for that. We stock our refrigerator in the office with everybody's favorite snack foods and their favorite drinks all the time. And the reason why we do that is they're independent contractors. So if you have them, you can't make them come into the office. So you need to do things to get them to come in when you have group meetings. So we will have group lunches, or we'll make sure that they're stocked up. So some of them will stop by just to like grab a snack or whatnot, and then reconnect with everybody in the office while they're working on projects. So Google, if you look up Google's benefits, that's a really good one to look at, because they have, they do snack foods, they do food every day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I think. But then they have like massage. We have that in our building too, like chair massages. We have a game room and fun room in our building. We do after-work activities together that are typically paid for by the company. So if everybody wants to go bowling or roller skating or go to a concert, that's something that we pick up the expense for. So for our Gen Y folks, like they'll even brag to their friends about what benefits we offer. Well, my company has, you know, we always go play volleyball together, and we go to games, and we go drink craft brew, and it does create kind of a more fun work environment. And it creates a buzz about your company, because that can add to your culture too. So obviously those are kind of interesting little benefits that do not cost a lot of money at all to administer, but really show the folks who work for you that you care about them too. I'll caution though, because I've heard somebody doing this, I've had this happen to me before when I worked in the newspaper industry. One of our fringe benefits when I was a sales rep was free concert tickets, but it was never anything that I wanted to go to. So just because you have a trade or something's free, you know, if it's the girl in high heels, she probably does not appreciate the monster truck rally tickets. So make sure that it's something that's actually a benefit to the person that you're giving it to as well. Yeah, so in most states, and most folks don't know this, we'll put this resource up for you on the whole Block by Block network, but in most states, it is actually legal to hire someone as an employee, commission only. Surprising, isn't it? You can. It means that when you hire them and bring them on board, as long as you have your documents in place and maybe you meet with an attorney for 15 minutes and you have him look over your stuff and make sure that's right, him or her, if they sign off and agree to work a commission-only position as an employee, then that's perfectly fine. Now, what that will subject you to is the taxes will be different when you pay out their bonuses. If you give them a draw, you know, you're taxing them like an employee versus an independent contractor. But the benefit from it is at that point, you can say, we have a staff meeting at 9:30 and you're going to be there, in a nice way at our company. But you can require them to do things, and you can require them to meet certain goals. So definitely look at that. If you are going to bring on board independent contractor or employee, what I would encourage you to do is have all of your documentation in place. You can go to LegalZoom. You can work with a local attorney. LegalZoom is usually cheaper. But when you're bringing somebody on board, get them to sign a document that they're acknowledging that they're an independent contractor for you, because you don't want to get into an issue with your local labor board. Let's say you bring somebody on board, you didn't document it, it's a bad experience, and then they go to the labor board and say, well, she told me she was going to pay me all this money at 30 days and she never paid me, and you have nothing to go back with. So if you get them to sign an independent contractor doc, then you have all of your ducks in a row and you can protect yourself from any liabilities in that particular area. One other thing that I want to note is a lot of folks at the conference have money tied up in editorial. So this could be one place that you could look for if you want to hire a sales rep with a base salary, or you want to take your existing rep from commission only to base. It could be that you have money to move over from another area. So if you look at your expenses, maybe you look at your freelancer budget. If you really want a sales rep and you need to pay a base salary in your market, then you could take from one area in order to bring a rep in for, you know, maybe you make it for a 90-day period of time probationary, 90-day probationary period of time, and you cover less editorial during that time period so that you can build up your sales operations, which logically, if everything goes according to the way that you've goaled it, you would have the money at that point to pay for the sales rep and bring the content back to its full sort of potential.
I think we're about maybe half an hour to end.
Yeah.
So how many slides do we have here?
Only we don't have that many left.
Okay.
Gen Y.
Speak to Gen Yers again.
Yeah. Every single Gen Y person that you hire, whether they're skilled or not, is thinking this when they come in to interview with you. When am I going to get a promotion? And they'll ask you too. Every person I have interviewed has asked this. When am I eligible for a promotion? Like, how do I get there? I'm like, wow, you just graduated school. Okay. When you look at this, if you want to show them how great it would be to come and work for you and do a good job for your company, tell them first, like, okay, I want to talk to you about the path that we use for growth here. So in order to be eligible for either a promotion or expanded job opportunities to get to work on the really fun projects, here is the path that we follow within our company. And this is where the situational leadership comes in place. When somebody, and you can Google situational leadership, it's going to show you 4 levels. An employee is a level 1 when they come in, meaning they need a lot of time and attention and direction, and you almost need to be autocratic and tell them what to do. You want to get them to a level 4 where they're really up and performing and doing the job kind of on their own. So if you study that situational leadership model, when you bring somebody in, this is a perfect opportunity to explain to them, how soon will I be eligible for a promotion? Well, let me tell you about the model that we use here. It's called situational leadership. So in level 1 here, we're going to do agile development. You're going to email me and tell me what you're working on every morning and what you got completed every afternoon. And then as you progress in the company, you're going to get additional responsibilities. You know, if we grow into a new market, there would be potential there. I'm not guaranteeing that that's going to happen or that we even have that plan. But if you want to work on more fun projects that help build up your skill set and your base, then we have to move you from a level 1, a new hire, to the next level, a 2, meaning you can take on more stuff. You show me that you can work independently, that you can get lots of great quality work done with little oversight. So that situational leadership model is sort of what you can use as an opportunity to show them that they're getting to work on more fun stuff. So I would say in particular with Gen Y, when they come in, don't give them the full entire scope of what their whole job is going to be about, like from now to eternity. Because even if you hire them in as a sales rep, they're going to get to a point that they want to be a project manager or they want to do something extra on top of just a sales activity.
Finding candidates is something that we spend a lot of time working with super camp folks on, especially salespeople, but there's also a challenge to find good support people or content people. Networking, asking your existing employees, typically using plain old want ads is not something you have to do, but it's probably not where you're going to find your best employees, because your existing employees know what you're looking for and they know who looks like that. So they'll make those recommendations. Emily's had very good experience working with local colleges to find high potential graduates who may not look like a salesperson, for example. So you want to talk about an example of that?
Yeah, there's a little gold mine. If you call your local colleges and universities, I will take our sales and marketing professors in town. We have 3 colleges. I go to lunch with them. I'll buy them a beer, whatever. I want to know who are your best candidates and how can I get them to come work for me? Because I've worked with these folks long enough that they know what our culture's like. They know who we'll be looking for. So they give you a set of eyes and ears. They're working with their students and they'll make good recommendations. Another piece is if you call the career services office at your local colleges and universities, you can usually place a free job on their employment board as well. So take that job description and have them put it up for you. Now, I say we do that specifically because we are intentionally recruiting Gen Y students or people who are just graduating because of our compensation package and whatnot. Plus, our stuff is really complex and it's new, so we're bringing folks in who are at a base level and we can just add knowledge on top of that. I always keep cards with me too. If I go out to a Chamber of Commerce meeting, if I'm out at a restaurant and I get really good service, here's my card, or if you're ever interested in making a move, have you considered working in media? Here's my phone number. Give me a call and get me your resume and come in and see us in the office and meet our team at some point, because you never know where you're going to find somebody who's good. And most especially when you're out, shopping or at a restaurant, that's when you can sort of notice, like, wow, that person treated me really great. Maybe they upsold me on a meal or a dessert or whatever. They could be a good candidate for you.
I find that an intriguing idea because it sort of assumes that you could get a lot of phone calls from people who you wouldn't hire, but you've invited them to call you, so you sort of have to be prepared to you know that the more
Yeah.
candidates you get, the better your choices are going to be. So, somewhat counterintuitive, but it works. I think we think that especially for news sites, community news sites, having a sense of mission and talking about that and recruiting for that is important. The experience in Super Camp is that the people who are having the most success with sales are those where the salesperson who's out there selling is passionate about what the site is doing for the community. They aren't just out there selling advertising. They're trying to bring the local business closer to consumers through the news website. So there's this sense of passion about the mission.
Mm-hmm.
Is there something more about Gen Y? I think also in Birmingham, it's also this sort of buy local community, sort of grassroots feel to it too, right?
Yeah, and I think when you onboard employees too, getting them to buy in to be able to also repeat your mission, what you're about as an organization. Everybody in my company knows I'll call it our elevator pitch, but it's really our mission of, we serve the community through positive local news stories and through providing a buy local platform for local independent businesses. They all know exactly what we do all the time, especially with Gen Y. They're very mission-driven kind of people. They want to be part of something bigger than themselves and not just a business. They want to be part of like movements. So if you can take your mission statement or your elevator pitch and then put that into your business's culture and have the folks that you bring on board repeating that kind of stuff, that's where you know that you're really kind of getting down the path towards something big.
This might be off topic, but I came in part because I thought I heard you say that you talk about partnerships with other media. Did you say that or did I mishear?
We
And I'm
talk-
just wondering if you're going to talk about that at all.
We talked about that in the partnership setting, in the partnership one.
Okay, then I missed the one.
Well, we're going to do that partnership one again
Okay.
at 4
Okay.
downstairs. Yes, so.
All right.
Well, we can talk about that here if we end up.
Yeah, looks like we'll have a few minutes.
Well, let's make sure, it's a small group here, so let's just make sure we're hitting the right points that people do want to hear about in terms of, because we've got, points we're going to talk, we've got about retention and compensation, but is that really what's on your mind?
Mm-hmm.
Well, again, that's the flip side, is that if people sense that you're just going to, I'm not saying you're doing that, but that the manager's just going to make the final decision anyway, they'll get antsy about, why are we bothering having a meeting? Just tell us what you want to do. So, there is a balance to using the meeting to get input and to hear people debate about things, and ideally, then once you've made the decision, instead of just saying, okay, here's what it's going to be, maybe you try to bring people around to your point of view. In which case, that discussion may bring out something you hadn't thought about, but it sounds to me like you're on the right track.
Mm-hmm. For independent contractors? Yeah, so you can't say, we're having a staff meeting at 9:30 on Friday and you need to be there. You can't say that. What you can say is, we're having a meeting at 9:30 on Friday morning and we're gonna have breakfast. And invite your employees so that if you have any employees, invite them in addition to the independent contractors. But I would lay out the agenda too. But just don't use words like required or expect to see you there, or kind of leave it open-ended, and then you'll be okay. But we use the carrot with stuff like that.
So, well, what's an example of something where you're concerned about stepping over a line?
For sales reps, what we do is if someone comes in as an independent contractor, we have a payout scale where we show them, like, here, if you follow this formula that we have in place, then you close this amount of business, then here's what you're actually going to make.
That's okay to set a target.
Yeah. So if you help set a target, let them set the target. Even better, like when Eleanor spoke before, she said, how much do they want to make? So let them choose on that list. And if you make their conversation around helping them, you told me that, Do you want me, you could even do this, do you want me to send you weekly reports about where you're performing to target? Or do you want coaching around performing to target? And if you do that and you have that documented, then you can have conversations about helping them get to the next level, but not, not using any kind of language like you didn't perform or you don't have this done or I need this from you or you need to turn this in or anything like that.
What about CRM input?
Yeah, it's one method of accountability.
But would you see that as being okay for a contract?
Yeah.
If that's,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ours use it. Yeah.
So that's important because if you have a sales rep and you're saying that you have to use this customer relations management system, and you have
Because that's
to,
how I pay you.
You have to right. You have to log every contact that you have with a customer, date, time, what where they are, what their status is, what their whatever the questions are that you want to. That by itself is going to be a good accountability mechanism so you can see what they're doing every day, in addition to what their sales pipeline looks like. So I think that one of the themes that we're hearing elsewhere is that that one tool is important for a publisher who's looking to work with a sales rep. So it sounds like that's a non-issue as far as requiring that as part of the work.
For writers in particular, our compensation package is multi-tiered. So for a freelance story, they get a base salary, a base fee for the story itself based on years of experience and expertise in that particular category. And then we also pay on top of that for, did you share the story through your social media channels? There's a bonus for Facebook, a bonus for Twitter, a bonus for LinkedIn, a bonus for sharing on your blog, through your newsletter, etc. Our traffic increased 25% off of adding those little bonuses in for each story. Like, really good way to help build your traffic up if your writers aren't already sharing those stories through their channels too. And that's performance-based compensation that you can put in place for your writers as well.
Question over there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's we use Sugar. Sugar? Yeah, it's a free CRM. So if you Google Sugar CRM, you can find it online. You can go in. Ours is customized, so it's customized for us, but you can just use the free one kind of out of the box. But yeah, our Sugar, I don't know. Do you know what Sugar's on? I want to say
it's web-based.
Yeah.
It's web-based.
I want to say it's PHP, but I could be completely wrong.
It doesn't matter if you're on a Mac or PC. Right.
Yeah, but they're secure.
They're private.
Yeah, they're password protected, all that good stuff. So for each of our clients, for the past year since we've been doing this, I have the history of every single meeting with every client that every one of our folks have had, which is hugely valuable.
And can you download it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
Keep in mind, our story format is usually 350 words or less. So it's not long form like a lot of folks. So we pay a base story fee of between typically $10 and $35 per story for the 350-word story. And then for each social media channel that the story is actually shared through, the bonus level is between 50 cents and $1 for each one of those channels. If the writer shoots video and submits video, there's a $25 bonus for original video with a story. We do another bonus for the number of original photos that are uploaded if we can create a photo gallery. So when a story assignment's given, we'll consider video and whether or not we've seen video from that particular writer before, if we know that they can shoot really good video, because we know we get great page views off of video and time on site increases and all that good stuff. So when a story is assigned out, we will automatically find out whether or not we're going to get a whole bunch of photos or video. But everything else, the social media sharing bonuses and that kind of stuff, when the story publishes, we send a note to the writer, hey, this is published, just a reminder, here are your bonus opportunities that are available if you go through and you share this. And our folks are doing it now. So it took us a little while to get them into the habit of actually going through and sharing through all of their channels, but they've brought in new traffic for us. So we may go through and at some point change what we're bonusing because there may be some other behavior that we want to see. Now, we also, because our writers are super involved in the community too, we also give them a bonus for sending us sales leads. So if they send us a sales lead for a local business that goes onto our platform and that ends up closing, then we give them a bonus between $25 and $100 for that.
And actually, that demographic is more typical of the block-by-block group than what Emily's working with. But we did, just to bring back to some of the observations from Super Camp, and this is a good point here about the virtual team, there's a lot of the block-by-block sites that aren't just the one-person sites, but might have 2 or more people involved. And I think they've become a little too virtual. So there's not a lot of face-to-face, and they're suffering the downside of that. So, so my observation, and I think we're seeing it as people make these changes, is to make sure you get people in front in a face-to-face setting at least once a month to sort of reaffirm what you're all about. You know, we're all on the same team together, and it's an important place to reset just the relationships, but also to make sure that because between those meetings, you'll be not seeing each other. So there'll be a lot of back and forth by email, a lot of chances for misinterpretations of stuff, as we know. So I think that's one of the points about virtual team that may help with these different demographics where people are, you know, enjoying the fact that they're independent and they're working on the site, but they're on their own. Maybe a chance to reaffirm some of the values and what you're trying to accomplish.
You could do some cool stuff with benefits too, in terms of like flexible compensation packages for moms, because I imagine that there's probably a set of things that they like that's very different than what my Gen Y people. Fresh veggies, though.
I love the fresh
Yeah.
veggies thing. I mean, 'cause
Even
I
if you
work
can
with
find a veggie co-op to
CSAs,
trade with.
You know, and I mean, I think that's a brilliant idea.
Well, the other thing I like about it in Emily's case is because their site is so about the local
Yeah.
business community. So having local vegetables be part of the incentive, that's
Yeah.
you know, it hits on a lot of different levels. What's the is there a lesson learned that if people are considering bringing on a family member or a friend, is there one piece of advice you would give on what to watch out for or what not to do? The lesson is from deciding whether to hire a friend and how to work with hiring a friend. The lesson is set goals, but then be prepared to hold that person accountable. Oh, that's it. So, yay. Thank you. Ta-da.